My name is Lauren Evans. I'm 36, and I'm a sous chef at Altitude Restaurant in Chicago. At Altitude, people pay over $200 for a single dinner without blinking. They praise the plating like it's art. They call me chef, like the word itself carries respect. My hands move fast in that kitchen, sharp, clean, precise. I can build a perfect dish in silence, the way some people fold prayer into their palms. At work, I'm someone. But the second I step into my mother's house, I become something else. Not a daughter, not a sister, not even an aunt. Just the help. And it took one sentence from a 10-year-old to finally make me hear it out loud. If you looked at my family from the outside, you'd think we were the kind people envy. My mom, Judith, widowed for years now, the kind of woman who still keeps my dad's sweater folded in the hallway closet like he might walk back in and need it. My younger sister, Brianna, always smiling in photos, always doing her best, always somehow landing on her feet. And my niece, Olivia, the sweetest kid you could imagine. Big eyes, soft voice, the kind of child who says thank you, even when she's the one being given crumbs. They were all I had left. So I built my life around them like a wall that slowly became a cage. The story really began 10 years ago, back when I still believed sacrifice was the same thing as love. I was in my 20s, hungry and talented and finally getting noticed. I still remember the email, a prestigious restaurant in Paris, offering me a position that would have changed everything. Paris. It felt like a door swinging open into the life I was born to live. Then my dad had a severe heart attack. The hospital smelled like antiseptic and panic. My mother looked like someone had scooped the color out of her face. Brianna kept saying she was too overwhelmed to deal with paperwork. I told myself, it's okay. I can carry this, just for now. I folded that Paris invitation letter with tears in my eyes. A few days later, my dad died. He left behind grief and debt and a family that suddenly looked at me like I was the only adult in the room. I stayed. I told myself family comes first. I didn't realize I was signing up to be everyone's provider. Forever. Brianna's life became a cycle. Job, quitting, excuse, tears, promise. Judith defended her every time. She's trying. She has Olivia. You know, life is harder for some people, Lauren. And I'd nod, because I'd look at Olivia, and how could I let that child suffer for the mistakes of adults? So I paid. Bills, groceries, school fees, medicine, repairs. And the biggest joke of all? I was making monthly payments on the SUV Brianna drove. A shiny black Ford Explorer, like a trophy she didn't earn. Judith's logic was always the same. She needs proper transportation to get Olivia to school. As if I didn't. As if my own life didn't count. Every holiday, the same pattern repeated. I cooked, I cleaned, I paid. They smiled, they ate, they asked what else I could do. And I kept doing it, because I thought kindness would eventually be returned. But kindness, in my family, was treated like a natural resource. Something you mine until it's empty. Last year's Thanksgiving was supposed to be normal. I traded 4 weekend shifts just to get that day off. My schedule was already brutal, but I told myself, it's worth it. They'll appreciate it. Just this once, maybe they'll see me. I got to my mom's house before sunrise. The kitchen light was harsh and unforgiving. My back ached. My eyes felt like sandpaper, but I tied my apron anyway. Because that's what I do. I cooked each dish with the same precision I use at Altitude. Turkey, cranberry salad, mashed potatoes with French butter, green beans with almonds. And in the oven, my grandmother's pumpkin pie recipe, the one Olivia always waited for. From the living room, I heard cheering. Football. Brianna glued to the TV like it was her job. Judith floated around smiling, tasting sauces, complimenting my work like a manager approving labor. Relatives from Detroit showed up too, people who only appeared when there was free food and family gossip. By the time everything was ready, I was running on fumes and adrenaline. Everyone gathered around the table. Plates clinked. Laughter rose. I served every single person before I sat down. And for the first time all day, I lifted my fork. That's when Olivia pushed her empty plate toward me. She smiled, sweet and innocent, like she was offering me a drawing. Then she said clear as day, "My mom says you should be cooking, not eating with us." For a second, I didn't even breathe. Then the room exploded into laughter. Not Olivia's laughter. Hers stayed small and unsure, like she didn't understand why the joke hit so hard. But the adults? They laughed like they'd been waiting for permission. Brianna shrugged, half smiling, like it was adorable. Judith patted my hand with that familiar look, the one that always meant swallow it, Lauren. "She doesn't mean anything by it," my mother said quickly. "Don't ruin dinner." I stared at Olivia's plate, my own plate, the food I made, the chair I finally sat in. I forced my voice to stay gentle. Sweetheart, that's not a respectful way to talk to people. Brianna's head snapped toward me. Her voice went cold. She's just a kid. Don't make a big deal out of it. It's a joke. Judith leaned in like she was soothing a bomb. Lauren, you serve people all day anyway, she said, smiling too hard. Doing it at home isn't a big deal. You're doing great. More laughter, my relatives joining in, the kind that doesn't even try to hide its cruelty. Brianna added, casual and condescending, like she was teaching Olivia a lesson. You do this for work. Doing a little more at home shouldn't hurt. At least here you get to see family. I looked around that table. Not one person asked if I was tired. Not one person said thank you. Not one person saw me. And something inside me, something I'd held down for 10 years, finally lifted its head. Like a trapped animal realizing the cage door was open. I stood up. No yelling, no tears, just stillness. I walked into the kitchen and came back with the pot of turkey gravy, still full. My heart was pounding, but my hands were steady. I stepped into the dining room, looked directly at Brianna, and slowly poured the entire pot into the trash. The sound of liquid hitting plastic was loud in the sudden silence. Everyone froze. One by one, I brought out each dish. Cranberry salad, trash. Mashed potatoes, trash. Green beans, trash. Turkey, trash. Dish by dish, I threw away hours of work. Not because I didn't care about food, because I cared about myself more. Finally, I opened the oven. The pumpkin pie came out perfect. Golden, warm, beautiful. Olivia made a small sound like her heart knew what was coming. Without hesitation, I dumped it into the trash. That was the moment Judith's face changed, from embarrassment to anger. Brianna shot up from her chair. Are you insane? What is wrong with you? I turned, my voice flat. If I'm just the help, then you don't need my food. Then I pulled out my phone. My fingers scrolled calmly, like I was adjusting a recipe. Automatic payments, transfers, subscriptions, bills, the SUV, the insurance, the little temporary expenses that had lasted years. I canceled them all. A confirmation message popped up on my screen. Automatic payment has been canceled. It looked like a verdict. 10 years of illusion, gone in one line of text. I put my phone away, grabbed my coat, and walked out the door. I didn't look back. The cold slapped me the second I hit the porch. Behind me, Olivia started crying. Full, devastated sobs. Not because of the money, or the car, or the adult drama. Because her pie was gone. Because the world had shifted and she didn't understand why. Judith rushed out holding her, hair messy, face furious. Brianna followed, red-faced and humiliated. Relatives crowded behind them like a jury. Brianna's voice cut through everything. Don't think having money means you can do whatever you want. Mom will never forgive you. Whispers followed, sharp little knives. Ungrateful, impulsive, disrespectful. Even though I was well into my 30s, those words still hit the part of me that had spent her whole life trying to be good. Judith stepped closer, her eyes wet, but her tone wasn't loving. No one forced you to do anything, Lauren, she said. You volunteered, and now you're acting like we owe you something. What are you trying to prove? I stared at her. This woman had called me in tears about rent, about repairs, about medicine, about just one more thing. I had paid for the roof, I'd paid for the chimney, I'd paid for Olivia's piano lessons. And now she stood there pretending I'd done it all out of hobby, like I'd had the right to say no. My chest felt tight, not with rage now, something colder. Clarity. I wasn't her daughter in that moment. I was her solution. My eyes drifted to the SUV parked in the driveway. Shiny, black, loud with symbolism. I paid $480 a month for that car. Meanwhile, my own apartment had mismatched furniture and an old dining table I barely used because I was never home long enough to sit like a person. The SUV wasn't transportation. It was proof. Proof that my sacrifice had been converted into someone else's comfort. Judith's half-finished paint can sat near the side of the house, cream-colored. She'd asked me last week to repaint the living room. You have the best eye, she'd said. Like flattery was payment. I walked toward that paint can. Brianna's voice rose, panicked. What are you doing? I didn't answer. I picked it up, crossed the driveway, and opened the lid. The moment felt unreal, like my body belonged to someone who'd been waiting years to move. I threw the paint onto the hood. Cream paint splashed and ran down the windshield in thick streams, pale and ugly against the glossy black. Judith screamed my name. Brianna lunged forward, face twisted with fury. And for a second, just a second, fear flashed through me too. Not fear of her, fear of what I was becoming. Brianna reached for me again, and I pulled a lighter from my pocket, lifting it just enough for her to see. The flame danced in the wind, My voice came out low, unfamiliar. Don't touch me. Brianna stopped. For the first time in my life, my sister looked at me like I wasn't a resource. She looked at me like I was a consequence. Judith cried, begging, Lauren, stop. Don't destroy your life over a moment. But it wasn't a moment. It was 10 years. I clicked the lighter closed and slid it back into my pocket. Then I looked straight at the two people I'd spent my youth trying to save. And I said, clear and steady, I'm done being the one who holds everything up while you rest. I turned away. This time I didn't hesitate. I got in my car and drove back to my small apartment in Lincoln Park, hands tight on the wheel, heart pounding like it was trying to break free. Halfway home, a laugh escaped my throat, bitter, shocked. Because deep down, I knew the truth. I should have done it a long time ago. That night, my apartment felt too quiet. The rage faded fast, leaving behind something emptier. Freedom, maybe, or grief. I walked to the old dresser in the corner, the one I never opened unless I needed to punish myself with memory. At the bottom drawer sat a small wooden box. The last gift my father gave me. My fingers hovered over the lid, trembling now, not from anger, but from what I might find inside. And as I opened it, my phone buzzed on the counter. A number I didn't recognize. My stomach dropped because something in me already knew. This wasn't over. I stared at the buzzing phone like it was a live wire. Unknown number. Chicago area code. My first thought was stupidly hopeful. Maybe it's work. Maybe Sylvia needs me for an emergency at altitude. Maybe I can bury myself in stainless steel and heat and noise until my family becomes a bad dream. But the second I answered, a calm voice said, Ms. Evans, this is Lakeview District Police Station. We need you to come in within the hour regarding an incident reported last night. My throat went dry. An incident. Like my decade of exhaustion had been reduced to a single word. I didn't argue. I didn't plead. I just said, okay, hung up, and stood there in my kitchen, staring at the paint-specked cuffs of my jacket like they belonged to someone else. Because in a way, they did. The Lauren who smiled through jokes, who swallowed humiliation to keep the peace, would have been crying by now. She would have been rehearsing apologies she didn't owe. But last night, I'd thrown away more than food. I'd thrown away the role they assigned me, and the world didn't like it. The police station smelled like coffee that had been reheated too many times, and fluorescent lights that never turned off. Officer Davis, salt and pepper hair, thick glasses, tired eyes, looked more like someone's father than a cop. He motioned for me to sit. Ms. Evans, he said, flipping through a folder. Your sister filed a complaint claiming you intentionally damaged a Ford Explorer last night. My pulse stayed strangely steady. I'd expected my hands to shake, my voice to crack. Instead, I heard myself say, I did. I poured paint on it. Officer Davis blinked, thrown off by the honesty. He glanced down at the paperwork again. However, he continued slowly, this vehicle is registered in your name. Is that correct? Yes, I said. He lifted his brows. So, you're the legal owner? I pulled out my phone, opened my banking app, and showed him the monthly auto debit history. Line after line after line. $480. $480. $480. A steady drip of my life. Officer Davis exhaled. All right. He leaned back, hands folded, eyes searching my face like he was trying to find the part of the story missing from the report. If you're the registered owner, you generally have the right to do what you want with your own property, he said carefully. Pouring paint on your own car isn't a criminal offense. That said, this happened in a residential area. Depending on how it affected the public, we can issue a minor administrative fine for disturbance. A fine. A small one. Not prison, not a record, not the end. Just a slap on the wrist for making my private breakdown visible. I almost laughed. Instead, I asked softly, so I'm not being charged? Not seriously, no, he said. I'd advise you to resolve family disputes in less creative ways. His mouth twitched like he wanted to be stern, but couldn't quite manage it. Then my phone buzzed, and the name on the screen made my stomach go cold. Brianna. I hadn't blocked her number yet. Not fully. Not cleanly. Some part of me still believed, ridiculously, that she might call and say something human. Something like, I'm sorry. Officer Davis nodded toward my phone. Do you want to take it? My thumb hovered. Then I tapped speaker. The second the call connected, Brianna's voice came through sharp and tight. No greeting, no hesitation. Do you know what you've done? I didn't answer. She barreled forward like an avalanche. That car is how I get Olivia to school, to appointments, to everything. If you stop making payments, I'm suing you. You can't do this. You can't just abandon family because you're having some dramatic tantrum. A tantrum. 10 years of my life reduced to a tantrum. Officer Davis's expression shifted, subtle but unmistakable. Disbelief, then understanding, then a kind of quiet pity. Brianna kept going. Mom is devastated. Olivia's crying nonstop. You humiliated me in front of everyone like you're some kind of... I didn't let her finish. I ended the call. Just clicked. The silence afterward was louder than her voice. I looked at Officer Davis, and I didn't have to explain anything. He'd heard enough. He nodded once, slow and heavy. All right, we'll file this as a family dispute. Pay the fine, and you're free to go. I paid the $150 administrative fine with a calm that felt unreal. As I left, Officer Davis walked me to the door. I don't agree with how you handled it, he said quietly, but I understand why you did. Sometimes people have to break something to rebuild it. I paused on the threshold, the cold air hitting my face. For a long time, I admitted, I thought I was the one holding everything together. Officer Davis said, maybe you were, but that doesn't mean you're obligated to keep doing it. I walked out feeling light. Not happy, not peaceful, but lighter. Like someone had finally taken a stone off my chest, even if it left a bruise underneath. My phone erupted the moment I got into my car. Texts from relatives. Judith. Brianna. Voicemails that grew more aggressive with each missed call. Not one asked, are you okay? Not one asked, what happened to you? They only cared about the money, the car, the disruption. So I did the thing I'd never been brave enough to do. I blocked them. All of them. And in the quiet that followed, I realized something terrifying. They had trained me to believe silence was danger. But for the first time, silence felt like oxygen. The finance company didn't care about paint. It didn't care about family. It didn't care about guilt. 2 weeks after Thanksgiving, I got the notification. Vehicle repossessed due to non-payment. Brianna lost her SUV. And just like that, her life hit a wall she couldn't talk her way around. I expected to feel guilty. Instead, I felt inevitable, like a domino finally falling after years of someone holding it up. In the days that followed, something else happened too. I slept. Not the restless, exhausted sleep of someone always bracing for the next emergency. Actual sleep. Deep. Quiet. I went to work and felt my shoulders drop lower than they'd been in years. I started eating meals without checking my phone every 5 minutes. And then, on a Monday morning, exactly 1 week after Thanksgiving, my doorbell started ringing like someone was pressing it with desperation. Over and over. My heart lurched, not from fear of danger, from fear of being pulled back. I rolled out of bed and checked my door camera. The image made me blink, then rub my eyes, then blink again. Because standing there, on tiptoes, pressing my doorbell with tiny frantic fingers, was Olivia, alone, a 10-year-old with a backpack too big for her shoulders and a face that didn't belong on a child. She looked determined and scared. I yanked the door open. Olivia, oh my God, what are you doing here? Her eyes filled instantly. I took the bus, she whispered. Mom doesn't know I came. My stomach dropped, like an elevator cable snapping. By yourself? She nodded, trembling. Chicago is not kind to children alone. My hands moved without thinking. I pulled her inside, locked the door, crouched to her level. Olivia, you can't... What if something happened to you? Her lip quivered. Then she broke. Full sobs, like her little body couldn't contain what she'd been holding back. I'm sorry, she cried. I'm sorry for what I said at Thanksgiving. I didn't mean it. I didn't think you were just the help. My throat tightened so hard it hurt. I grabbed tissues, handed them to her, and tried to breathe through the panic. She wiped her face with the sleeve of her hoodie like she didn't trust herself to stop crying long enough to use the tissue properly. Then she said the sentence that made everything inside me go cold. Mom and Grandma, they talk about you when you're not there. I froze. Olivia continued, voice shaking. They call you the rich servant. My chest felt like someone was pressing a hand into it. She looked up at me, and the way her eyes pleaded, it wasn't just for forgiveness. It was for rescue. Mom told me to say that thing at dinner, Olivia whispered. She promised she'd buy me a new toy if I did it. I closed my eyes. For a second, I saw Thanksgiving again. The laughter, the smirks, my mother's hand patting mine like I was a dog being trained. And now the truth. They hadn't just been disrespecting me. They'd been teaching a child to do it too. Olivia dug into her backpack with frantic hands like she needed proof, like she was afraid I wouldn't believe her. She pulled out a piece of cardboard, folded and decorated with colored pencil. On the front were 2 bears hugging. One bigger bear wearing a chef's apron. One smaller bear in a pink dress. Inside, in crooked handwriting, I'm sorry. She held it out like it was her heart. I drew you and me, she said through tears, because you're like a panda, big and cute, and you always make things better. That did it. All the anger I'd been clinging to, like armor, shattered under something softer and more painful. Because Olivia wasn't my enemy. She was the hostage they'd been using. I pulled her into my arms. She was so small, so light, and she clung to me like she was terrified I'd vanish. I never hated you, I murmured into her hair. Never. Olivia's voice came muffled against my shoulder. Do you still hate Mom? I didn't answer right away because any answer would have been too sharp for a child. So I said the truth in the gentlest way I could. I'm hurt, I told her. And sometimes adults do stupid things when they're hurt. But that doesn't mean love disappears. Olivia sniffled hard, then whispered the words that landed like a knife. Promise you won't disappear from my life. I don't want to lose you like I lost my dad. I pulled back, startled. Lose your dad? Olivia's eyes flickered. Panic, like she'd said something she wasn't supposed to. I mean, I don't want people to leave, she corrected quickly, voice small. I didn't push. Not yet. But something in my stomach twisted. Because children don't talk like that unless they've learned loss early. I made her breakfast. Bear-shaped pancakes with honey, the way I used to when she was little, and I still believed my presence could keep everything safe. She ate slowly, cheeks still blotchy from crying. I watched her, and I realized the truth with a kind of sick clarity. If I cut off my family completely, they would punish me through her. They wouldn't even mean to. They'd just use her, the way they always had. So I made a decision right there, in the quiet of my apartment. I wouldn't go back. But I also wouldn't abandon Olivia. Not if I could help it. I quietly called the one person who might help me without immediately setting off alarms. Mrs. Morales, Judith's neighbor, retired, sharp, the kind of woman who sees everything from behind her curtains and doesn't pretend not to. When she answered, I kept my voice steady. Mrs. Morales, I said, it's Lauren. I need a favor, and I need you not to tell my mother or my sister right away. There was a pause. Then she said low and firm, Is Olivia with you? My breath caught. Yes, I admitted. Mrs. Morales exhaled like she'd been waiting for this moment. I'll come. An hour later, she arrived at my building with a scarf wrapped tight around her neck, eyes like steel. Olivia hugged me so hard before leaving that my ribs ached. She looked up at me, trembling. Will you still talk to me? I crouched down, held her face gently between my hands. I'm not disappearing, I promised. Not from you. Olivia nodded like she was memorizing my words to survive. Mrs. Morales took her hand and led her away. When the elevator doors closed, my apartment fell silent again. And I stood there, alone, feeling like I'd just been handed the most dangerous kind of responsibility. Not the kind my family forced on me. The kind my heart chose. I turned back toward my kitchen. That's when I noticed it. A small smear of marker on the edge of Olivia's card. Like she'd written something, then tried to rub it out. I lifted the card, held it closer. And under the colorful bears, barely visible, were faint words pressed into the cardboard like a secret. Don't let Grandma take you away. My skin went cold, because suddenly this wasn't just about money. This wasn't just about disrespect. This was about Olivia, and whatever was happening in that house when I wasn't there. The apartment felt too quiet after Olivia left. Not peaceful, hollow, like the air itself was holding its breath. I sat at my small kitchen table, Olivia's apology card still in my hands, tracing the faint indent of those erased words with my thumb. Don't let Grandma take you away. A 10-year-old doesn't write something like that unless fear has already taught her how. And that was when it hit me. I hadn't just stepped out of a toxic system. I'd disrupted it. And systems don't collapse quietly. They retaliate. 2 days later, Sylvia, the general manager at Altitude Restaurant, asked me to come to her office. That alone was enough to make my stomach twist. Sylvia was fair, sharp, and efficient. She didn't summon people unless something mattered. Her office smelled like espresso and lemon cleaner. She didn't offer me a seat right away. Instead, she studied me. Lauren, she said carefully, I received a report about a legal incident involving you, property damage. I nodded. No excuses, no deflection. Yes, it involved my family. Sylvia sighed and finally gestured for me to sit. I know you're one of our strongest sous chefs, she said, but personal chaos has a way of spilling into professional spaces. I need to know, will this continue? For a second, old instincts kicked in. Explain. Apologize. Make yourself small. Instead, I told her the truth. Everything. Thanksgiving. The humiliation. The payments. The SUV. The police station. Olivia. I didn't dramatize it. I didn't soften it. I just told it. Sylvia leaned back, arms crossed, her expression shifting from concern to something closer to recognition. I've watched you burn yourself out for years, she said quietly, always covering shifts, always saying yes, always exhausted. She paused. Maybe it's time you stopped surviving and started living. My chest tightened. I'm not firing you, Sylvia continued. I'm giving you 2 weeks of paid leave. Deal with whatever this is. Come back with your head clear. I blinked. You're not mad? She gave me a small, sad smile. I'm mad that no one taught you boundaries sooner. I walked out of her office feeling like I'd just been handed oxygen after years underwater. Those 2 weeks changed me in ways I didn't expect. On day one, I sat across from a therapist and cried without apologizing for it. She listened, then said something that lodged itself in my bones. Living for others is admirable, but disappearing for them is not. On day two, I bought a navy blue armchair I'd been eyeing for months, something I'd always dismissed as unnecessary. I sat in it and realized how foreign it felt to enjoy something that didn't benefit anyone else. On day three, I cooked for myself. Not for guests. Not for family. For me. Carbonara. Perfected after years of adjustment, but never tasted alone. Every day after that I wrote letters to myself, lists of boundaries, things I would never accept again, people I didn't need to save. I started sleeping better, laughing more, breathing deeper. For the first time since my 20s, my life felt mine. Then I went back to work, and everything blew up. Chef Thomas pulled me aside before evening service. His jaw was tight. "Lauren," he said, lowering his voice, "we've got a problem." He showed me his phone. 1-star reviews. Dozens. Accusing me of poor hygiene, rude behavior, unsafe practices. Some even referenced details only someone close to me would know. My hands went cold. The writing style, the phrasing. It was unmistakable. "Brianna." Sylvia called me into her office again, this time with a thick stack of printed complaints. "Someone is deliberately targeting you," she said. "They've contacted suppliers, claimed you're unstable, reckless." I didn't feel angry. I felt devastated. My sister wasn't just punishing me. She was trying to erase me, to destroy the one place I'd built without her. "I'm sorry," I said quietly. "If I need to step away to protect the restaurant—" "No," Sylvia cut in, firm. "We're not doing that." She looked me dead in the eye. "We know who you are, Lauren, and we don't cave to smear campaigns." Words spread through the kitchen. Instead of distance, I got hands on shoulders. Chef Thomas said, "We've worked with you for 3 years. We know your work." Other chefs nodded. Regular customers flooded review platforms with praise. Some even offered to help me pursue legal action. For the first time, I understood something painful and beautiful at the same time. People with no blood ties were protecting me better than my own family ever had. That night, as the dinner rush roared around me, I felt grounded. Rooted, like I belonged somewhere real. And then, like fate mocking me, the hostess came back and whispered, "Lauren, your mother is in the lobby." My stomach dropped. Judith looked smaller when I saw her. Older. Her coat hung loosely from her shoulders. Eyes sharp, but tired. She'd waited through my entire shift. Cold coffee untouched in front of her. The moment I sat down, she didn't ask how I was. She accused. 2 months, she said. Not a call, not a message. Do you know how much the family needs you? I stayed quiet, she went on, voice tightening. Brianna had to sell her computer. Olivia had to quit piano lessons. Without the car, everything is harder. I let the silence stretch. Then asked, calmly, "Have you asked Brianna to get a stable job?" Judith blinked, confused by the simplicity. "She's trying," she said quickly. "Not everyone has your talent." "She's 32, I replied, old enough to take responsibility. That's when Judith reached for her favorite weapon. "Your father would be disappointed in you." Something inside me hardened. "My father," I said softly, "didn't raise me to be a lifetime solution for everyone else's choices." Judith's mouth tightened. "You've always been the strong one," she said. "Brianna needs more help." And there it was. The truth I'd spent years avoiding. I wasn't loved more. I was needed more, because I was easier to lean on. When we parted, I didn't feel guilty. I felt resolved. In the weeks that followed, Olivia called me secretly through Mrs. Morales. Whispered updates. "Dad works at a car wash now. Grandma makes him go to work. I don't take piano anymore. I'll go back when things are better." Each call confirmed what I already knew. Cutting the cord hurt, but it was working. Brianna was growing up. And then, 9 months later, my phone rang during a Friday dinner rush. Northwestern Memorial Hospital. My hands shook as I answered. "Ms. Evans," the nurse said calmly, "your mother, Judith Evans, has been admitted for a stroke. She's in critical condition." The world tilted. And just like that, the family I'd walked away from pulled me back, whether I was ready or not. I handed my station over without a word. Chef Thomas didn't ask questions. He saw my face and nodded once, sharp and understanding. The drive to the hospital felt endless. Red lights, sirens, my own heartbeat pounding so loudly it drowned out the radio. Guilt crept in fast, quiet, poisonous. Did I cause this? Did cutting them off push her over the edge? By the time I reached Northwestern Memorial, my hands were trembling again. not from fear of confrontation, but from the weight of everything I'd left unsaid. The waiting room was cold and painfully bright, and there, slumped in a plastic chair at the far end, was Brianna. She looked nothing like the sister who used to roll her eyes at responsibility. Her car wash uniform was still on, dark stains on the sleeves, hair pulled back too tight, eyes rimmed red. She looked small, older, tired in a way sleep doesn't fix. We didn't hug. We didn't even greet each other. We just sat on opposite ends of the room, the silence between us heavier than any argument we'd ever had. The beeping of monitors echoed from down the hall. Nurses rushed past. The smell of disinfectant burned my nose. After what felt like hours, a doctor approached us. "Miss Evans?" he asked gently. We both stood. "I'm Dr. O'Connor," he said. "Your mother suffered an ischemic stroke, likely caused by prolonged, uncontrolled high blood pressure. She's been under significant stress." The word stress landed hard. "She needs emergency surgery to reduce the pressure in her brain," he continued. "We're taking her in now." Brianna swallowed, hard. I don't have insurance," she whispered. "I can't pay for this." The sentence echoed, because I knew why. I had canceled the policy, part of cutting off financial support. A necessary decision, with an unforgiving consequence. Dr. O'Connor held up a hand. "We'll proceed regardless. The hospital has emergency assistance programs. We'll discuss finances later." He left us standing there. Brianna finally looked at me. Not with anger, not with entitlement, with fear. "I don't have money," she said again, like she needed to hear it out loud. "The car wash pays $11 an hour." I studied her face. For the first time in years, I didn't see my burden. I saw a woman who'd been allowed to stay weak for too long. "I'll help with whatever insurance doesn't cover," I said quietly. Brianna's head snapped up. "What?" "But listen carefully," I added. "I'm not going back to being the family ATM. I'll help Mom during this crisis. I'll always help Olivia. But you have to take responsibility for your life." She stared at the floor, jaw tight. Then she nodded. "I know," she whispered. "She worried all the time after you left, about money, about Olivia, about losing you. I depended on you too much." It wasn't an apology, but it was the closest thing to accountability I'd ever heard from her. Judith's surgery lasted hours. When she finally came out, tubes everywhere, her body fragile and unfamiliar, something inside me shifted. This wasn't the woman who controlled the room anymore. This was just my mother. She woke up unable to speak. Her eyes filled with tears when she saw us standing there together. In that moment, there was no favorite child. No strong one. No failure. Just three people, stripped bare by consequence. A week later, while Judith was still in recovery, a letter arrived at my apartment from my father's old lawyer. Inside was a handwritten note, dated years ago, sealed until the time Lauren truly needs it. My hands shook as I read. "Being strong doesn't mean carrying everything alone, and being weak doesn't mean you can't grow. Protect your heart, Lauren, even from family." I sent the letter to Brianna. She cried when she read it. Really cried. And for the first time, I believed change might actually be possible. Not easy, not fast, but real. Stop. Continue, Part 5. The family we become. Judith never fully recovered. The doctors were honest from the beginning. Rehabilitation would be slow, uncertain. When she finally came home, she was in a wheelchair, her speech limited, her independence gone. And something strange happened. The woman who once controlled everything could no longer control anything. Reality stepped in where manipulation used to live. Brianna moved back into Judith's house, not as a dependent, but as a caretaker. At first it was awkward, painful, messy. She forgot medications, burned meals, missed appointments. She called me once, voice shaking, asking how I'd managed everything for so long. I didn't answer right away. Then I said the truth. I didn't manage, I told her. I disappeared. That silence on the line felt different than before. Not defensive, reflective. Over the following months, Brianna changed. Not dramatically, not magically, but steadily. She kept her job, got promoted to shift lead, set alarms, learned how to cook something other than boxed pasta. She learned how heavy responsibility actually feels. And slowly, she stopped asking me to save her. Olivia stayed with me 2 nights a week. We cooked together. I taught her how to hold a knife safely, how to taste sauce instead of drowning it in salt. She told me about school, about friends, about dreams that didn't sound afraid. One night, while brushing her teeth, she said casually, "Mom listens more now." That sentence mattered more than she knew. I stayed at Altitude. The smear campaign fizzled out when it stopped getting reactions. My career stabilized, then grew. But the biggest change wasn't professional. It was internal. I stopped answering guilt disguised as concern. I stopped rescuing people who refused to swim. I stopped apologizing for wanting a life. And then, 1 year after that Thanksgiving, something arrived that finally closed the circle. A small envelope. Inside was a second letter from my father's lawyer. It was shorter this time. If you're reading this, it means you chose yourself. I'm proud of you. I cried. Not the kind of cry that breaks you, the kind that releases you. Today, Judith lives with limited mobility. Brianna cares for her. Olivia laughs more. And I exist in their lives by choice, not obligation. I'm no longer ATM Lauren. I'm an aunt, a daughter, with boundaries. A woman who learned painfully that love without limits becomes exploitation. If there's one thing I want you to take from my story, it's this. Boundaries aren't walls that block love. They're foundations that keep it standing. Sometimes a shock is the only thing powerful enough to break a pattern that's been poisoning everyone for years. So tell me, was I wrong for taking a decade to realize my worth? Or was that time simply the cost of becoming who I needed to be? Leave your thoughts in the comments. I read them more than you think. And if this story touched something in you, don't forget to subscribe and turn on notifications, because none of us walk these crossroads alone. Thank you for listening.